Old men are notorious for their rambling talks, and you have given me an opportunity for doing so, which will make me still worse. However, in the beginning I should point out some inaccuracies, mind you, not very serious ones, in what your Acharya has mentioned. I was associated with the training center when I was at this mutt as one of the assistant secretaries, but I did not come to the training center every week. No. The training center used to come to me. And not every week, but thrice in a week. And sometimes, in addition, perhaps 1 or 2 days more. My attraction to the training center not liked so much by my boss, our assistant, our general secretary, because he thought my attention would be thereby diverted from the office work. But I was incorrigible, as I am even today. I like to be associated with the training center because it is here that we have our future, and it is here that we feel like being the young brahmacharis when we came to join the mutt. Naturally, I remember those days often, and many a time I have shared my experience of those days with our young friends. Old people like to ruminate on their old days, good old days. The days in those days were really good insofar as the environment was concerned. There were a lot of mosquitoes. It was a hotbed of malaria. All around it was full of jungles and marshy land. And our food was simply deplorable. If anybody wants to have an experience of what is called the subsistence level or the level of survival, they should go and live in those days, where we had barely 2 meals and no amenities of any kind whatsoever. The food was very meager. Then there was no accommodation. If there were a number of sadhus from outside, as often it happened except in the malaria season, we poor brahmacharis had to manage somehow to sleep somewhere. That was the condition. And as regards time for study, very little time was provided. There were not many to do the daily duties, so everybody had to put in a large share of the work, and the result was that we could read for some time only at 2 in the afternoon. From 2. I don't know when your classes start now, but our class used to start at 2. And then after 3, some had to go and start their daily work. Some people were fortunate to have free hour up to 4 o'clock, but none was free after 4. That was the time. And in the evenings, well, after Arati and the usual period of meditation, the little time that we could have, that was of course free, but there was no light. No electric light was there, and not even kerosene lamp could be had because kerosene was not easily available. So you can understand how much we could read, and yet people think we have become pandits. So that was the condition. Now I don't envy you, but I feel very happy that we have got much greater opportunity. So I don't want you to go back to those days, but you are missing something which we used to have, but you cannot. Namely, the company of the great stalwarts of the organization, the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Of course, that opportunity cannot be provided unless you try your utmost to just invite the spirit which they disseminated in those days. The spirit is yet, they are here living, and you can invite that spirit even today. In those days our organization was just, I don't know whether it can be called the stage of infancy, but it was just a stage when we have begun our life as an organization. The organization's rules and regulations were not codified as yet, except the mott rules that you are being taught now. And the life that our great gurus used to live, and which was before us to emulate. That was the opportunity which you had, but which we cannot provide you with. So you will have to be more careful, more vigilant, more arduous in your spiritual endeavor to just cope with this deficient condition that you are in. But you have got ample opportunity in other respects. You have got better food, better clothing, better house to live in, better provision for study. And this is what should be. Because it is you on whom the future of the organization will rest. So you must be properly equipped with all that is necessary to keep the banner of Swamiji flying. So that is what the opportunity is there for, so that you can be better equipped to shoulder the responsibility that awaits you, say after a few years. This training center is not merely a place where you have got opportunity to study more seriously, more concentratedly, with more facility. There is another thing. Here you have an opportunity to live together, all brothers coming from all corners of this country, sometimes even from places abroad. This life in the organization together, this community life, is of utmost importance in our organization, which can survive only if there is a close bond of love among the constituents of the organization. We require that a relation of love which will bind us together, because we all belong to the Ramakrishna order, and we are all therefore servants and heirs of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the great responsibility that we have got. And the organization has to do everything to see that you are fully equipped to be able to bear that responsibility efficiently, and I have every hope that you will. Now that is why you are provided with all these facilities. The organization has grown from a small beginning to its present stature now. As I told you, in those days at the Vellore Mutt, used to be just a few souls. In malaria season, there used to be hardly 30 people here, and almost half of them down with malaria. It was difficult to carry on the work. And after the malaria season was over, of course a few more faces could be seen. And then we had not the means to support a larger number either. More people are not there, and there was no provision for more people also. More people means less food. More people means further deterioration in the standard. So that was the condition. Now, happily, things have improved. Now, the material comforts are there. I don't say also that the spiritual content of the organization has become less. No, I should not say that. But then we should be vigilant. We should be vigilant from top to bottom, from those who are at the helm of the organization and those who are the new entrants who have just come to take shelter under the care of the organization. All will have to be very vigilant to see that we are worthy of being heirs of the great spiritual heritage of Sri Ramakrishna. Swamiji has organized this institution not for merely the present generation, but it is meant to be the source of inspiration, guidance, light for generations to come. Of course, we know nothing is eternal. This organization will also be perhaps old, and perhaps there will be decay. But then let us hope that we shall be able to maintain our youthful vigor in spirituality for several centuries. But that is a great task that has to be undertaken with all seriousness. The awareness of the great responsibility that is entrusted to every one of us. Now that is why the training center is there, to equip you with all that is necessary for managing the affairs of the institution, the great organization, so that it will be able to perform the task that Swamiji wanted it to do. Now that is the great responsibility, and we should never for a moment lose sight of that. The responsibility can be best served by enhancing your spiritual condition, by increasing your spirituality, by being a man of renunciation, every one of you, not merely a man of renunciation by profession, but in the core of your heart, filled with that spirit of renunciation, and along with it, you will have to be a true servant of Swamiji, who wanted your life to be not merely spent for your own spiritual well-being, but to be dedicated for the well-being of all people. It is a spiritual organization out and out, but at the same time, the spirituality that Swamiji wanted us to have is not merely a spirituality in abstract, but it must be manifested in every phase of our lives. Now that has to be remembered. That is why Swamiji has given before us the twin ideals of liberation and well-being of doing good to the world. AmritaMoksha Jagat Pitaya. You are preparing yourselves for sannyasa, for renunciation. But this renunciation has not got a negative content only. It is not merely giving up the world, but dedicating yourself to a world, to the making of a world which will be spiritual all around. That is, you are to be spiritual yourself and help others do that themselves also. And that spirituality again is not merely some sort of negative concept. No, it must manifest in even what is called your secular life. We have no part of life which is secular. Every part of our life is spiritual, and so-called secular pursuits will have to be transformed into spiritual exercise. That has to be remembered. Swamiji wanted us to be ready to be absorbed in meditation this moment, and the next moment to work with a spade in the garden. So it is not a sort of spiritual practice which will induce you to close your eyes and sit with an indrawn mind, but your mind has to be trained in such a way that all your pursuits will be spiritual. You will have to live a disciplined life for the growth of your spirituality, but at the same time to prepare yourselves for helping others in solving their secular problems. Swamiji wanted the spirituality in that broadest sense. We have to remember that. There are many funny things which we have not been able to work, Swamiji's ideas we have not been able to work out in toto. Perhaps we have not yet fully realized the ideas or the significance of them. It will take even longer time to do that. But the ideas are like that. Swamiji said this balloon moth will have to be built up into a full-fledged university. That university will give teachings in philosophy, arts, sciences, and even technical crafts. Everything was included. And it did not mean that the sadhus will not involve themselves with all those pursuits. Swamiji just casually mentioned, you will have to grow things in the garden and sell them in the market. That means you will have to be equipped with all these different occupations, not merely abstract thinker. You will have to be a worker in every sense, in every field. And at the bottom of your all these pursuits will be the inspiration of working out your own salvation and helping others do the same. That should be remembered, is our ideal. I do not know to what extent your training here will equip you with that. It is not expected that you will get everything from here, but you will get ideas which we will have to work out later in life. The institution here, the training period, will give you some ideas to imbibe and to be adapted to a way of life which will stand you in good state as you go to your different centers, not your centers, every center is your center. As you go about spreading the ideas and living that life, I think your training center cannot do anything more than that. But it is up to you to make use of it. I am not defending the shortcomings of the training center. There are shortcomings, and there will be, because what is perfect in this world? But as I told you, you have got opportunity which we did not get in our early days. And I hope you will make use of this opportunity as best as you can. Now, the main thing that you will have to carry from here with you as your, as Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji has shown, that way has to be remembered. There are many ways, we have not exhausted everything. Everything has to be understood in the light of the lives and teachings of Ramakrishna Vivekananda. I join together these two names, otherwise you are likely to understand them only in a truncated form. Sri Ramakrishna did not start hospitals and colleges and so forth, those institutions which we are now doing. So Sri Ramakrishna means that spirituality, undiluted you may say, without its finding expression through various institutions. But Sri Ramakrishna has an expert gardener, planted the seeds of his future work in the minds of his great descendants, the great children who had to carry on the work that he just made a beginning of. And he left that work to them, and Swamiji, as foremost among them, gave shape to these ideas. And the institution is gradually unfolding those ideas in various fields. So you have to remember that Sri Ramakrishna and Swamiji, that is why we are using the two names together. Without the spiritual pursuits guided in the light of Sri Ramakrishna, we may build big institutions, but they will be poor in spiritual content. And without Swamiji's vigorous efforts towards these various acts of doing good to the world, Sri Ramakrishna may be misconstrued as an idealist who was absorbed in meditation and did not have any feeling or any kind of activity towards the good of the world. Sri Ramakrishna worked in his own way, and Swamiji has gradually brought those ideas to their natural consequence, which will find expression in all fields. That is how the organization is going on and should go on as far as we can see. But we have got to be very alert at every stage that we do not forget either the spiritual content or its expression in the material well-being, not only of this country but of the world as a whole. I don't know, I should not continue further, I think. Clear? Huh? Actually clear. All right. Television. I hope you are not feeling bored. I told you old men are usually garrulous. So they will go on talking and talking, and without just following any sequence of thought, you must be wondering how this can be given a beautiful demonstration of by a Swami like me. But don't be too much amused. It is my habit. However, your Acharya says, principal says, I should go on, but now there is already a break.
How can we be more vigilant?
How can one be there? By being vigilant, you can be more vigilant.
After we are not vigilant, unconsciously we become less vigilant or no vigilant at all.
Now about that, you see, how can we be more vigilant? We are not vigilant sometimes. That is what is human nature. I give you one illustration. One Swamiji, while wandering about in the Himalayas, saw one Swami meditating and dozing at the same time. It is not an unusual sight anywhere. Swamiji said, put a plough on his shoulder. Put a plough on his shoulder. He is not fit for this life of meditation, and yet he is thinking that he is doing it. That is a want of vigilance. How can we be vigilant? We can be vigilant by remembering that when we should just put on our shoulder the plough, we should not close our eyes and doze as meditation. That is being vigilant. And also being vigilant means we are working ourselves to death for certain things to make a beautiful, say, institution, a full-fledged college or high school, or a very efficiently run hospital and so forth. But then, being too much preoccupied with that, we forget why we are doing it. Remember that. That is also lack of vigilance. Neither being preoccupied with one thing we forget the others, and vice versa. All these are things to be attended to, and our lack of vigilance will mix up issues. It is often the case with us, for everybody. There is chance of our making mistakes. But let us not be discouraged because of that. Because we dozed when we tried to meditate one day, we should not give up meditation. And because we sometimes forgot to give full attention to our meditation while being preoccupied with our work, we should not give up the work. We have to keep everything according to a scheme. In the scheme of life, everything will have to be put in its proper place. When you will be initiated into brahmacharya, you will be taught perhaps the rudiments of this in the mantras, where you will be taught you do not work so much that you forget why you are working. And you do not meditate so much as to forget that there are things to be attended to apart from meditation. This is what is called vigilance. You will have to be careful about everything. A balanced life, as it is emphasized in the Gita, that if you do not do some work, that does not mean you are in that state of worklessness or niskriyata. And not merely becoming niskriya or inactive, you really become free from the effects of action. Now that is beautifully illustrated in the Gita. So that balanced life is possible only when we are always careful, always vigilant as to how we are doing things. What we are doing is not enough. How we are doing, that is more important. So that how we are doing a thing, that has to be remembered. That is what is meant by being vigilant. At every step we have to be careful. At every step, because lapses come any moment. We have to be careful, and being careful does not mean that we do not take any step at all and sit quiet. That will not help. As Once one Swami wrote to Swami Bhuteshananda that when I go to work, I feel my ego being inflated. So I am thinking of giving up all activity. And then Swami Bhuteshananda retorted in the reply, and then you will be free from ego. That is, even if you are free from all activity, the ego will not leave you. That is what is being vigilant. So life has to be lived. You will have to do this thing and that thing, even when you are thinking of life of intense meditation. You will have to just get 2 meals a day or at least 1 meal a day. That means you will have to come in contact with other people. You cannot remain simply exclusive, simply absorbed in yourself, except in deep sleep. And I don't think you will think that deep sleep is a very good state of blessedness. It is as good as death. So you have to be alive, very much alive, but live as you should live, making your life effective for attainment of your goal and for helping others attain their goals. No more, this is enough for us. 10 minutes to 4. I have to leave at 4. So you'll excuse me if I don't go on.
They ask what is ballet like.
That we shall see later on. When we leave the training center, at the parting time you ask this question. We shall discuss it at that time. Huh? No, beginning after. Chalo. Chalo. No more.
He